Keeping in line with our random reviews of things that we own or discussions and stories about stuff that we've had for a while, I'm going to take a moment to talk about something with a little bit of interesting family history to us. Now, there are dozens, hundreds, thousands of them out there. I'm sure some people are going to roll their eyes because they'll say to themselves, we've seen these multiple times. What more can you say about it? But I don't care, because this is my story that I want to tell. And what I want to talk about today is our dad's 2010 Camaro 2SS. Why is it interesting? There's a couple reasons. To begin with, our father had not bought a new car since he bought a 1984 4Runner back in 1984, which I think will hopefully drag out of its container storage at some point in time, and Tim can talk about it, because that too has an interesting story as well. But when 2010 hit, after the Camaro had been on a hiatus for a while, I can't remember if it was a couple of years, but they had taken a pause from that wedge design, which I think a lot of people had grown tired of. And they came out with this retro style that was inspired by the late 60s. One of the other things was that the Transformers movie was coming out. So everybody was hyped up about the fact that Bumblebee in that movie was going to be this Camaro. He really noticed it. At the time, it was a kind of a choice between the Challenger, which was coming out right around that same time, and this car. And it actually made him leave town. He wasn't one that liked to leave home that much and go to the auto show with Tim and I so that he could check the two cars out. Ultimately, he settled on this one. I can't remember his reasoning why. I think it was just more because he was a Chev guy. So he put in his order. He was supposed to get the first one from the dealership. Unfortunately, due to some errors, that didn't happen. And the crazy part was they were only allocated one at a time because the demand was so high. Now, luckily, we have a good buddy that works there. He's been a friend of ours for a long time. He was able to snag a second order for him. And it got a lot of attention back then. Now they're so common, you just see them everywhere, so you don't think about them. But at the time, it was a pretty big deal. So this is the 2SS. It's got the 6.2 LS3 in it because it has the manual. I imagine, or I seem to remember, about 426 horsepower. Now, the crazy thing about this car is the plan with my parents was originally that they were going to use it as a cruiser to get away, and that really didn't end up happening. So it tended to sit in the garage a lot and see kind of little short sprints here and there in town, maybe the odd short out-of-town trip, no more than an hour away, which means that at this point in time, it has about 11,000 kilometers on it. I don't know how many miles that is for our American viewers, but I'll flash it at the bottom of the screen. So we can kind of take a look at it and see 15 years after it was released and talk about what it's like compared to all the stuff that's out there now. I really don't have much in the way of complaints about the engine. After sitting for 5 years without being even so much as touched or paid attention to, it started right up without a problem. Huge engine for a small car, which means that it picks up and goes quick. Because of the year, you're not faced with a lot of crazy electronics. It's definitely something that if we needed to do a repair, we could probably do ourselves. We wouldn't have to bring it to a shop. As far as the models go, there were multiple ones. There was the V6 version, which I can't remember the designation. There was the 1SS, which was, I think, kind of the lighter V8 version. And then there was the 2SS, which was this one and the most popular model of them all when they came out. So from a styling perspective, I think it's held up over the years. It's a lot blockier than what they became as time wore on. As you can see, it's got the bigger front end, but it's the one that resembles the late 60s Camaros the most, I find. As time wore on and the lights started to get thinner, they were cool looking, but they were more sports car-like than they were retro. Looking at it from the side, styling still holds up. The car pretty much remains stock with the exception of an exhaust upgrade. We had gone with some long tube headers, which meant that we had to delete some cats, but that threw an engine code, which my dad didn't like, and it was back in a time where you just didn't have the ability to program like you did now. So we ended up switching those out for shorty headers so that he could put the cats back on, and it got rid of that code. Fun fact though, you'll see those long tube headers on the Chev because they were sitting in the garage, and when it came time to rebuild our LS, we figured, you know what, instead of going out and buying some exhaust pieces, let's just use what we have. Interior-wise, I think it holds up. It still looks pretty cool. It's got some interesting sporty details. I loved how they did the gauges down here, which again is a retro throwback to the late 60s cars. As you can see, there's no big control panel. Nice big gauges. You can see what you're doing. It's nicely plain. From a handling perspective, I really can't complain. But you have to keep in mind that most of the stuff we have is old. So there's not a lot of new suspension that we've been able to test out. So this is probably the newest besides our like day-to-day vehicles. Holds the corners well. I mean, the tires that are on this thing are 15 years old now, so they probably need to be replaced. In the state that they're in, they're still pretty good. But then again, I'm not driving super crazy either. One of the strangest things I find, and it's something that's happened in a very short period of time, is how much the interior of cars have changed. I've gotten so used to graphical interfaces, touch screens, electronic displays for tach and speedometer, that getting into something like this, which is really only 15 years old, is weird because almost everything is analog or very basic digital. Something I find interesting is the size of the engine. I'm pretty sure it's identical to the ones that came in like the 2500 HD gas trucks at the time, which are considerably heavier and considerably larger. So thinking that I've got that type of power in such a tiny car makes it that much more fun to drive. I really like this car. It's very different than absolutely everything else that we own. Anyone who's watched any of our other videos knows that everything is old and a little bit beat up and cobbled together. This is a car that you just hop in, turn the key, and go for a drive on a Sunday, take your lady for a rip, and have a good time with. And I'm glad that we have it. I think there was a point in time that my dad had considered selling it, but for whatever reason, even though he wasn't driving it, he decided to keep it. So that's what we're gonna do too. Yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Like I said before, there's tons of reviews and discussions and videos of this style of car out there on YouTube. I figured it was time to just throw ours into the mix. So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.